Casting an actress best known for her musical theater work on London's West End leads to a pretty nifty trick. Welcome to the Time Treadmill. I'm Ron, and these are my sweaty thoughts about Doctor Who. The third segment of this season-long Trial of a Time Lord story introduces a brand new companion for the Doctor in the person of Melanie Bush, or Mel, as played by Bonnie Langford. Now, Bonnie Langford was a bit of a stunt casting. She was best known for her musical theater performances. She was in the original production of Cats on the West End, and also had several other noteworthy performances. Bringing her onto the show was doubtlessly intended to bring in new viewers, although it's questionable how well that worked. And unfortunately, Mel is, if not my least favorite companion, at least the least consequential. And a big part of that is because she is never properly introduced. The setup of this story is that the Doctor has researched the Matrix and plucked a story from his future to continue to defend himself against the Time Lord trial. And so, when Mel appears in the story, she is already a well-entrenched companion who's clearly been traveling with the Doctor for some amount of time. That means that we, as viewers, never get her introduction. We never get the meet cute. We never get the bigger on the inside moment. We get none of that. We just get this fully formed and set TARDIS team. And because we don't get that introduction, we don't feel any particular attachment to Mel. And that's heightened by the fact that she really is a throwback to the early 60s era of the program, where the function of the female companion is to stand around and scream. And speaking of screaming, the ends of both episodes I watched this morning end with Mel screaming, and because she's a theater major, of course she screams in perfect pitch. And what pitch is that? Why, it's the opening note of the Sting music for the closing theme. So we get Mel scream, and then perfectly on key, the closing credits music. It's actually kind of a nifty trick. On the whole, and taken on its own merits, this is actually a fairly decent story. And although the version I'm watching right now is the slightly longer version that were the original director edits that ran over time, there's another version on the Blu-ray that cuts out all of the space trial sequences and just presents this as a completely standalone story with custom opening and closing credits. And I'm kind of curious to go back and watch that when I have a chance. Although the one inherent problem with that approach is that, particularly early on in the story, the Doctor is behaving out of character, and that's due to meddling in the Matrix databanks. During the courtroom sequences, he talks about how what is being presented is different than what he reviewed prior to returning to the trial. And so if you watch this without those segments, the Doctor's behavior early on of being completely disinterested and not wanting to get involved in this obvious Agatha Christie 10 Little Indians and Then There Were None pastiche, it's just strangely out of character that doesn't make sense unless you have the context of what eventually happens in this season. But even so, I am interested in watching that take. But honestly, I have no great desire to engage in that just now, so maybe I'll come back and revisit it after I finish this ridiculous project. And on that note, I'm going to call it a day. I will see you tomorrow for the final two parts of this Terror of the Vervoids section of Trial of a Time Lord. I've only got 2 more days left of the 6th Doctor. I'll see you tomorrow.